Hey, Nick Darr here with Business Over a Brew. Pleased to shoot this episode at the Old Bakery Beer Company here in Alton. As a lot of you know, the location where we used to shoot the show, Great Rivers Tap and Grill, decided to close down, as businesses do sometimes, and kind of left us scrambling a little bit, looking for a location to shoot our next episode. And on very short notice, we called Lauren at Old Bakery here, and she was immediately said, sure, come down and shoot it. So just very generous of them to let us use the space on such short notice to shoot the show here. It's a really terrific business. They really run a great place here at Old Bakery. And it's a good fit for our show too, because they're a great business, and obviously they serve brew and make it here. So it's a terrific place to have it. If you haven't had lunch here or dinner, I highly recommend you do that. The food is terrific. The beer selection is great bourbon selection as well. So it's just a great place to hang out in a historic building here in Alton. So come check out Old Bakery Beer, and thanks again to Lauren and everybody for letting us have the show here at Old Bakery in Alton. Welcome to Business Over a Brew, the show where we talk business with some of the Riverbend's most interesting and influential business people, sponsored by the Riverbend Growth Association. They gave me this nice shirt for the show, so appreciate that. Joining you today from Old Bakery Beer Company, a special location here that we're doing the show from this time, and pleased to be joined in this episode by Mark Smith, Shelter Insurance. Mark, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's been a journey for you, I know. Just tell us a little bit about your background and where you're from, where you grew up, things like that.
Well, my background, I was born in St. Louis, grew up actually Alton, Wood River area and everything else. So definitely have roots here in Wood River. Graduated, actually moved away down to Southeast Missouri. Long story short, my wife went to school with her in Roxana and came back to visit her because we were still friends. And next thing you know, she's making me move back.
Right, yeah.
So kicked back to 95. So I've been back in Wood River since late 94, early 95. And came back here working for, actually had my CDLs. I was driving a truck for Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Did that for a while and was actually just looking for a change and everything else. And
right.
Originally interviewed with MetLife out of Edwardsville, doing life insurance. And backstory for me, I really bought into the concept of life insurance right off from the beginning because I'm the youngest of 5. I've got a sister that died from a brain tumor at 25, had a daughter, no life insurance, had a brother that drowned at Gillespie Lake, 26, no life insurance.
Gosh.
Had a son. Since then, I've lost another sibling. So I know firsthand what having and not having life insurance can do for a family.
Yeah.
So whenever I interviewed with him at MetLife and everything, it just, for some reason, it basically became my call. And it's like, this just makes too much sense. It's one of the few things that you can do that not only affects somebody now, it can actually affect them for generations.
It's funny when you put those stories to it that a lot of people think of insurance as boring and not, something nobody really likes to talk about it. But when you put that personal story to it, it really kind of brings it home.
Yeah, nobody grows up going, I want to be an insurance agent. It's like, I wanted to be a baseball player too, but I stopped growing in my freshman year. So
right,
kind of put a stop to that.
Yeah. So tell us a little about, talk about how long were you with Coca-Cola? And I'm kind of interested in that
Yeah, I was with
career.
Coca-Cola. I started with them down in Southeast Missouri. Was with them from, I want to say, 92 till 99. Went to work from there, worked a few years with Red Bear, and same thing. I was actually going to the grocery store, selling off of a truck and everything else, and selling the stores. It's like
restocking shelves.
Yeah, pretty much everything. Had built the relationships with the people in the store and everything else. So I have a lot of good friends. I'll go into Schnucks on a regular basis, and it's the same people that I've been dealing with for 2 to 3 decades. So it's kind of like a visit whenever I go in there. But yeah, it was just kind of something different.
Then to MetLife, and then where from there?
From MetLife, I was there, and pretty much at MetLife, for the most part, the focus strictly was life insurance, investments. I was actually one of the few agents there that actually ended up getting property and casualty licenses, mostly because they offered to pay us pay back if we took it and got our license and everything else. It's like, well, if you're going to reimburse it, I'll go ahead and do it. And yeah, turned out that it was pretty much a good fit. Didn't really like being just kind of tied there, so they were actually talking about selling out, which eventually they did sell out to Mass Mutual and everything else. So left there, went to work for couple of independent agencies. Was there from independent from 2009 all the way till last year, 2021, when they actually reached out to me at Shelter a little while before that. And obviously the first time they reached out to me, I just kind of blew them off because I was content where I was.
Right.
Loved everybody that I worked with, had a real good working relationship and everything else. But the more I kept thinking about it, my whole goal was to be an agency owner, whether it was independent or whatever. So everything just made perfect sense because, like I said, it's in Wood River. I walk to the office. Sometimes it takes me 26 minutes to walk there.
Right.
I like to walk up and down downtown, go grab a bite to eat at the burger bar. Or we have a lot of new places that are coming on the way. So
yeah, there's really been a resurgence down in Wood River. We've had Brad Wells on the show to talk about that a little bit, but talk a little bit about that and just the things that are going on in Wood River. Really, really
Brad's
good.
been real vital to it, obviously, because he's been heavily involved. Obviously there's been commotions and everything else, but
sure,
downtown Wood River is actually definitely grown back to hopefully to what it was before when a lot of people were younger and kind of missed it because obviously we've got 1929 pizza, you've got bagels, you've got the burger bar, which I spend way too much money at the burger bar because I can tell you their specials.
Not from their perspective.
Well, exactly. Yeah, basically somebody tells me they're thinking about going to the burger bar, I can tell them the special right off the bat.
Right,
but, then you've got Missy down at Rustic Roots, Downtown Delights, which is actually getting ready to move out of Rustic Roots into their own building, which is, I'm looking forward to that. I think they're a couple weeks from shutting down at the current location and moving over there, so that's going to be good. We've got people that own the Wood Duck in Soulard are opening up a Mexican restaurant, and it's not going to be just your regular Mexican restaurant. Right. I hear word of street tacos and everything else, which I do like a good street taco.
Sure, yeah.
Heaters is coming. So
right, a lot of good things happening.
Exactly, a lot of good things happening.
You took over a Shelter office. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but you took over from a guy who did it for a long time. Good friend of mine, Paul Gushoni. Yeah, just talk about Paul a little bit.
Paul is a great guy, and that is the funniest thing because obviously, before I even agreed to proceed with taking the office over, I actually met with Paul because I wanted to know from him whether it was going to be a good fit. Because I didn't want to go there and then decide I didn't want to be there because it's like this is where I want to be whenever I retire if I'm going to do this. And Paul and I really hit it off the bat. And the funniest part about it is last December we had a conversation. A lot of people don't know it. Paul actually is going back to school for his master's in history. But in order to kind of supplement paying for that, instead of going to work at Lowe's, as he says, he's come back to work in the office, which is great because the clients that were there before me, who knows them better than the agent that was there before?
Sure.
And so
probably, and they're probably a little, probably pleased to hear from him once in a while.
Yeah, because I mean, even before he came back to work for me, everybody would ask about how his health was and everything else because we talked all the time before that. So yeah, it was a very smooth transition, and then it was even smoother just to bring him back because, like I said, we kind of work hand in hand and get along so well.
It's funny, he called me, I hope I'm not getting him in trouble for calling me on business hours about non-shelter business.
I did know about that,
He called me about the Great Rivers Coral Society, and he said, I'm in the office, so just give me a call back. I was like, you're back in the office? Oh, that's great. So that's good. But there's probably a little bit of challenge there, too, taking over from somebody that...
Honestly, there's not. The good thing, like I said, whenever I took over, we'd already had a rapport and everything else. And he stayed on a little bit because even though I'd been doing insurance since 2005, you still have to go to Columbia, Missouri to get shelterized, as they call it.
That's good.
Yeah. So whenever I was going through that process, he basically stayed on to run the office while I was out of town for those couple weeks and everything else. So it kind of worked out good. And then, so we already knew that we had a good working relationship. And then kind of like now, even though he's back and he knows the clients and everything else, when he's basically like making calls and scheduling appointments and everything, he goes, no, you need to come in and talk to Mark because he's the agent now. I'm just helping him out. So, So very good.
And Paul's good that way.
Paul is very good.
It could work out differently with a different person.
It could. Trust me, I've heard a lot of horror stories from other agents.
Right. So. You touched on this maybe a little bit already, but what's the most rewarding part of your career for you?
Honestly, I kind of touched on how not only can you help somebody now, but you're going to have an effect on for generations. The very first death claim I did kind of really hit me right off the bat because, like I said, I started the very end of 2005 with MetLife. I wrote a policy in January 2006, perfectly healthy, went right through underwriting.
Right.
5 months later, she just died.
Mm-hmm.
Left a husband, child, and basically the first thing they did was call me. It's like, are we going to have an issue on this? It's like, no. She went through underwriting. She did everything she had to do.
Right.
It's in the first 2 years, so they'll look at it and basically.
Such a stark contrast between that situation and being able to, not that it brings the person back, but just being able to, help them financially versus the situation
nothing
with
ever
your siblings.
replaces a person.
Right.
But it can help life go on, because the worst thing that can ever happen is, in a situation like that, worst day of your life, knowing that it's going to get worse because I don't know how I'm going to keep this house.
Right.
Or something like that.
Absolutely.
We had another situation here a couple years ago. Wrote a policy in March on a couple that was engaged, and unfortunately they were in a motorcycle accident on the River Road, and we had just taken out the insurance, and young couple, worst day possibly of his life, because he survived, she didn't, but we still did pay out.
Right.
So
what's been the biggest challenge in your career?
The ever-changing insurance industry.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that got accelerated during COVID, or it just went, it was totally upside down a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We've been busier than ever this year, which is good for me, good for us. The downside is it's because a lot of companies, we've had a rate increase. Everybody's had some rate increases because we keep making the joke. Everybody says, why is it doing this? It's like, well, since COVID hit, people forgot how to drive, staying at home. It's like there's a lot more claims, and not only are there more claims, but
every single on the road now. Coming back.
Yeah, but every single claim now is costing that much more, because I went out and just recently purchased a new used truck, and it's just the cost of everything is so much more. It's like, so the prices are coming from somewhere. It's not just insurance companies out to get you, but
makes sense.
Yeah.
You've got a great company behind you in Shelter. How do you stay informed of current trends and stay on the cutting edge?
Luckily, we've got very good crew that keeps us alerted. We actually have separate channels where they actually put stuff on our website every single day, letting us know what's happening here as far as in the industry, what's happening with other companies, basically keeping us ahead of it. Things that have happened, like with some companies having issues with certain cars because they become a theft risk because of technology. They're letting us know about that ahead of time, letting us know what companies are being affected by that. And also, when we're talking about all the companies and everything else, this market is very different than it has been a long time. There's actually insurance companies that are turning business away. So that's something you don't hear about very often.
Right. You're juggling a lot. You're handling a big office, a lot of clients. What are some tips you have for organizing your day effectively?
I'm probably a little bit too organizational for some people. I do my spreadsheets. I keep them track of everything else. We actually do have a very good sales system, is what they strictly do call it sales, but it's where we can actually put in, like we talk to the client, we can actually put in what we discussed. If we need to follow up with them, we can actually put it in there for a date and time that it's going to actually pop up on my desktop and let me know you need to call Mr. and Mrs. Jones. So
technology is a big part
technology
of that.
Technology is definitely a big part of it. Having a good staff. Like I said, obviously Paul. I've got Ann that works for me a few hours a week. She's bookkeeper and also takes payments and helps keep me in line. And then my son actually works 4 hours a week for doing a lot of clerical stuff and stuff that I don't want to do.
Talk about that challenge of just working with family, and that can be good and bad.
It can be. It's good and bad. It's kind of funny because I've had the discussion with him a few times, because this is just his part-time job. Does have one that's actually full-time, but I keep pushing him. It's like, you know what? If you get a better first job, you can quit both of them. So that's always a challenge, because you're always wanting the best for everybody, even if it's not really going to help you in the future.
You've had to make, I'm sure, and take some difficult calls in your life, whether that's tragic situation or a rate increase or whatever it is. How do you deal with those? How do you get through those calls and handle those the best way you possibly can?
Yeah, obviously the biggest one, going away from the tragedy side of it, is like strictly rate increases because the market is what it is.
No one likes to hear that.
Nobody likes to hear it.
Right.
We try to stay on them ahead of time. But
Yeah.
sometimes one will come through and they'll get a hold of us before we get a hold of them. And I mean, the biggest thing is we understand. It's like we're in the same boat. It's like I've got people that
My rates went up too. So.
exactly. Well, exactly. It's like
Right.
it's like I can't believe it's like it went up again. It went up $50. Like, yeah, mine went up 120.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah.
like, trust me, I understand. It's like
Sure.
our money is not. We're not making more money, but I'm the same way. It's like I go to the grocery store here in town. It's like I go everywhere local. It's like everything costs more.
Right.
It's not just us, but
Sure.
biggest thing is just talking to people and listen to them and
Right.
see if there's any way we can help them out.
We've talked to a lot of business owners, professionals on the show about the difficulty of, and you've been married, I think, almost 30 years.
Yeah.
You've got kids. The challenge really of balancing the personal with the professional. How
Yeah.
do you go about doing that?
It is a tough balance. Luckily, I've got a very understanding and fair wife. The good thing is also that I've learned over time that family, well, I've always known family is more important, but there's also ways to balance it where, like, we just had our anniversary. So it's like, okay, we're just going to go out of town. We went to Augusta for our 20th anniversary, just have some time
Mhm.
alone.
Sure.
So, yeah, we do a lot of short trips like that, or we like to go on Sundays, go hiking. We went to Valmeyer recently and just hiked the mine there, and then stopped at a little restaurant and had a couple drinks and some food afterwards. So
Right.
just making time.
Looking back at your career and your life, are there mentors in your life that you look back on and still, hear their voice in your head a little bit?
Yep, I do. One of them was actually with MetLife. I still, to this day, anytime somebody wants to talk about anything like that, I always say, I'd rather make 10% of something than 100% of nothing. It's like, I'm just here to earn your business, earn your trust. We'll go from there, because obviously sometimes you get in the insurance agency that some people don't have the best name. I've worked around some of those
Mhm.
that didn't have the same moral compass that I did.
Right.
I didn't really like that. And that's kind of where I was kind of floating under, kind of sinking at the time, because changes in business and everything else at that point,
Sure.
changes in management. And he basically took me under. He said, if you make the calls out of my book of business, we'll go out and meet them. If we sell anything, I'll just split it with you.
Yeah.
He said, that's something that this way I don't have to pay out of pocket unless I'm making money.
Right.
It's like, well, it works for me. So,
Sure.
and then I got the on the job training.
Right. Yeah. What goals do you have for the next 5 years or 10 years in the business?
Strict goals is, obviously, I've been in this agency for a year and a half. I do have Paul in there. I am wanting to end up getting another full-time staff member.
Mm-hmm.
Paul and I kind of have an arrangement where we're looking at least him staying on until he gets through the college, so he can kind of do that.
Right.
But, my goal would be to just keep growing the agency, get to the point where I've got 3 full-time employees in there, and then, although I don't want to leave downtown where I'm at, I do like the office I'm in, but
Sure.
it'd be a nice problem to have if I have to get a bigger office and have some more
Right. Yeah.
employees. So that would be the goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. First of all, how do people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you?
618-254-3225 is the office phone number. We're sitting there on the corner of East Ferguson and 2nd Street, right across from the post office in Woodruff. Mark's Shelter Insurance, Mark Smith on Facebook. I'm pretty accessible. It's easy to find me. Might just see me walking up and down downtown Woodruff or involved. Always like to spend time in the community.
Awesome. Mark, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.